It looks like the Chinese people have finally had enough of the ruling Communist Party telling them where they can go, what they can do, when they can leave, how far they can go, and running pretty much every other detail of their lives. Because funny thing about actual oppression, it tends to inspire people to fight for freedom. Meanwhile, in America, where we've been spoiled with decades of liberty and prosperity, leftists have spent the better part of 3 years, arguably a lot longer, clamoring for a taste of that good old government control. But wanting to trade freedom for security only makes sense to the short-sighted who've never experienced tyranny. So if that's you, I have one simple suggestion. It's the perfect time to pack a bag and head on over to China. They've got everything your big government-loving heart could ever hope for, and it's why their people are now fighting desperately for just a piece of what you're trying to throw away with both hands right here. Protests have erupted in China over the communist government's insane COVID lockdown because, as it turns out, oppressed people eventually get sick of, well, being oppressed. Things really kicked off over the weekend after at least 10 people died in an apartment fire Thursday in the Xinjiang province. COVID rules reportedly prevented firefighters from getting to the building in time, where residents were literally shut inside. In fact, the entire city had been under lockdown for more than 100 days, thanks to President Xi Jinping's zero COVID policy. Now, thousands of people have taken to the streets to demand Jinping step down and the Communist Party give up power, which is pretty unprecedented in a country where you can be murdered and imprisoned simply for questioning the government. And in fact, that's exactly what's happening. Authorities immediately began revoking the COVID passes for protesters, passes that are supposed to clear people who've tested negative for the virus, but are instead being used as weapons against political dissenters. Demonstrators were beaten by police. Others were seen being hauled away in buses. All because people are sick and tired of being locked up like cattle over a flu bug. Shanghai has been locked down for 2 months, leaving people unable to get food and medical care. Millions are being forced to take daily COVID tests and carry COVID passports. The government is still running internment camps with tens of thousands of isolation pods, where everyone from toddlers to the elderly are crammed in like farm animals at a slaughterhouse. Of course, none of this is new to the Uyghurs. They've been locked up by the millions in concentration camps for years, except now it's happening everywhere. Because this is what communism does. And I seem to recall pandemic-happy nutjobs here praising China's COVID response. Remember this? When Bill Gates said China actually did a lot of things right and Trump really screwed up by, not locking everyone in their rooms for months at a time. Rochelle Walensky hailed China's really strict lockdowns back in 2020. The World Health Organization gushed over them. The UN said China shows COVID can be stopped in its tracks. The AP praised the communist government's response to Trump's conspiracy theory that the virus was manufactured in, China. The Guardian called China's response brutal but effective. CNN applauded China's success in controlling the coronavirus, which might be why you aren't seeing a ton of media fawning over these protests. Fauci wasn't asked about it on CBS Sunday, where he did float the idea of more school shutdowns in COVID hotspots. Then again, he once admitted under oath that China inspired him to push for COVID lockdowns in the first place, so kind of hard to sing a different tune now. Are you getting this? Leftists had a bigger problem with anyone merely raising the question of whether this virus was manufactured in a lab in Wuhan or those who jokingly called COVID the Kung flu than they did with an oppressive government that is still to this day shoving people into quarantine camps, locking them in their homes for months, and letting them burn to death in apartment buildings. Celebrities who had all the time in the world to film themselves singing crappy John Lennon songs and telling people to just stay home from the comfort of their Beverly Hills mansions have nothing to say now when it comes to thousands of Chinese citizens fighting for basic human rights. Of course, they're probably too busy cashing China-backed checks for garbage movie remakes and NBA games. So I've got a thought. For those of you who loved lockdowns, who got mad when parents refused to mask their babies or inject their toddlers, who thought 2 years of school closures just weren't enough, who nodded along as old people were left to die alone in nursing homes, who backed government-forced jabs, who think of free people deciding for themselves what health risks they are willing to take, here's your alternative. Buy a one-way plane ticket to Shanghai and have at it. They've got all the government control you could ever want. And I'm sure there are more than a few Chinese people who would be happy to trade places with you. For the rest of us, remember who praised the Communist Party's response and wanted to bring it here. Remember those who pushed for total government control of our lives, because what's happening right now in China is exactly what that gets you every single time. Do not forgive, do not forget, and never surrender. And that's your Reality Check America. Help us keep posting videos just like this one by heading over to mrc.org/donate and supporting the Radio Research Center. And as always, subscribe on YouTube and Rumble, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and stay sane out there.